In terms of clusters, I hope we can write a Dear Denny letter from BC to Quebec and talk about your experience, both positive and negative. You have a rich history in different clean tech clusters, some of which have done very well, some of which have done well and then perhaps not so well. In fact, you're talking about my ability to predict the future. I'm a long-term shareholder in Ballard Power, so the fuel cell sector is of great interest to me. and you know, looking at lessons learned from that. But if you can maybe just give some thought and some advice, dear Denny, this is what we did that worked out really well. This is something we would have done differently. I don't know if you have any thoughts of the first draft of the letter.
Well, dear Denny,
Enclose is your first check.
Probably the most important thing, and I mentioned it in my opening comments, is that you clearly have to focus, and I don't believe we made this mistake, but we learned from maybe previous mistakes with other opportunities we had, is that it's about working together, government and industry and the clean tech sector. It's not about government, and far too often I think all of us in this room, whether you're from Canada or around the world, have watched governments tell industry what is best, and we know best, when in fact I think the solid foundation of strong government is the ability to work collaboratively with the people you represent and the industry you represent. The ability to sit at the table and find out. It doesn't mean we will always agree on everything either, and there has to be, and I think there is that realization. But the primary focus has to be the ability to collaborate, work together, and it isn't us telling you or you telling us, it's working together and finding that solution. And I'll tell you, equally as important is as we move forward, particularly in this field, there's so much innovation and there's so much opportunity, but so much unknown, that no matter how good our ideas are, as a clean tech sector or as a government, if we can't grab the public and have them gain the understanding of what the benefit is to them and the environment in which we live, we lose a big opportunity there. So.
Dear Denny?
Dear Denny.
Dear Denny, dear. Yeah, I think I just add 3 points to what the minister said. The collaboration idea, I mean, it sounds nice, sounds like motherhood, but it actually works at the ground level. And it means that the deputy minister and some of his key staff come over and spend time with CEOs, and we have a real conversation about what it's going to take to move the industry from here to here. And over the next 10 years, and what's the dashboard look like? You know, what are we trying to accomplish in terms of companies coming here, and in terms of recruiting, attracting, retaining companies, bringing entrepreneurs here, growing venture capital. The other thing is that I think you can't force fit this stuff. I mean, I think you have to create a great underlying economy, and if your corporate tax rates are 50, 60, forget it. I mean, you know, you've got to have an environment where great entrepreneurs want to come and live and work. And you've got to have a great environment where capital can flow, because there's just so much competition for capital in clean tech. And there's competition for where startups are going to be located. So you have to create that great underlying business environment. And then I think the other thing is you have to, these organizations that are kind of cluster builders have to be a little bit of a Tom Sawyer approach. That's our approach, because there's so many great things going on at UBC and UNBC, and you don't want to replicate that. You don't want to repeat the work that's happening in the industry associations. You don't, but the idea is to get people moving in the same direction, and then unexpected things happen. And I'll give you an example. The City of Vancouver and the University of British Columbia are now starting to really talk about a partnership about how they can create a platform where you can, technology companies can come and bring their ideas and their innovations and plug into this big infrastructure. UBC's recently announced that they're turning the campus into a living laboratory for all these new technologies. So when you create this momentum and get everybody excited and moving in the same direction, it creates unexpected things happen. You try to control and say, we're going to pick only biomass gasification. Well, actually, that's a good idea. If you try to make the pick too narrow, you end up with unintended consequences. So you've got to keep it broad enough and let things kind of unfold.
And before we open a question, I'll ask one more question to the panel, and that's another, I think, mindset typical of economic development organizations is the zero-sum game. If I don't get this company attracted to my city or my region, somebody else does, it's my loss, it's their gain. And thinking perhaps of how do we get beyond zero-sum, when do you decide to compete? When do you decide to collaborate at a local level, like primary industries in energy and mining and materials, versus secondary materials and recycling, versus a national scope or even a global scope? Is China going to eat our lunch, or are they going to help us cook? So I want to get your thoughts on when do you compete, when do you collaborate?
Well, if you want to compete, you have to be in a position to win. And if you have a chance to have the podium, then you can compete. But sometimes we need to bring into Canada some coaches from other countries. We have to go and have our training camp in other countries. We do that to win gold medals. Can we do that to win gold medals in clean tech? I think it's yes. The answer is yes. We need to open our mind. And that's why the program On the Podium, I like it. You know, I read it because there's a lot of money there in the government. But it was interesting. And I say, why don't we apply that to business, to clean tech?